And welcome back to the Golf Intervention Podcast. It's a great day. I just got home from picking my son up from college in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's home from spring break. That was fun. And then I immediately sat down and turned my laptop on, and it was dead. And now we're recording an episode 20 minutes later after we let it charge. And on tonight's episode, we're going to discuss skill. This episode, listener, could change your life. How you doing, Rob Vales?
We're doing great. How about you?
I'm just a little on the edge tonight, so we don't know what direction this show might go. But,
the future is always uncertain.
Future's always uncertain. I'm just excited. We've been starting to get a little busier with the weather picking up. And, had a little unexpected trip I had to make today, so I'm like, yeah, ready to go. Mushy-brained and ready to go. But today, on part 2 of our series on golf improvement theory, which part 1 was really fun and got a lot of interesting comments from people on part 1. And part 2, we're going to discuss skill. And I think this may be this little word, what is it? 5 letters, skill, maybe literally most misunderstood
Yes.
/ not understood / didn't even know it existed part of golf development.
Yep.
And once you as the golfer understand skill and separate it from swing, your life will change. I almost guarantee you that. That's too heavy. Is it too heavy, Rob?
I don't think it could possibly be heavy enough, Eric. So I think you covered it.
Am I hyperbolizing?
No.
late on a Wednesday? I don't think so
No.
either. I did some lessons today, which were very much swing lessons. But a lot of lessons are not swing lessons. So today was swing. There was some stuff that needed to happen today.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we're working on skill. So I would say that in the golf intervention 1.0, this has been the part that's helped people a lot. Like shot dispersion stuff and strategy, huge. Understanding who the golfer is, level 1, 2, 3, and 4, what that means to their, development and scoring and likely their habits and their strategies and what they need to do to develop, huge. But an understanding of how to separate swing and skill may be the hugest of all.
Yeah.
So that is what we're going to take on tonight. The hugest of all, skill. So we have, I think, said this at least 100 times, but you can never say it enough. And I know we get new listeners every episode.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to watch the stats roll through. And we'd like to take this on again because it is so impactful. So when we discuss skill, when I say skill, Rob Vales, no matter what it is, whether you're playing basketball, whether you're playing the guitar, whether you're learning who knows what.
Yeah.
So skill is a thing. And in golf, how do we define it? And also I'd say for you as an instructor, like give me a sense of the journey as Rob fails in learning about these things.
Right.
Skill, swing. Give us a little sense of what it is and kind of your journey towards understanding.
Yeah. So I think whether we like it or not, I think every golfer who comes to see us is looking for skill improvement. And whether they know it or not, or whether the coach knows it or not, we're always looking for skill improvement. As a young teacher, I very much was all about swing. Every single lesson, I was looking at what the ball was doing, and then I was making a 1-to-1 correlation in, okay, if I changed this swing thing, it should change what the ball's doing. Now, that's not entirely incorrect, right? Because there's some minutia to this that's very important. We have the bias of skills. So if you thought about all 3 skills, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but if we said over the course of a year, how are the skills biased? Then that would be more of a swing type of thing, right? So, I mean, if all you do is teach swing, then I got good news for you. You are changing the bias of skill already without knowing it, right? And so a lot of golfers and coaches, that's why coaches are successful, students are successful, and many times have no earthly idea about what we're going to talk about tonight when it comes to skill, because you are changing the skills anyway when you influence swing. So I want to get that out of the way, but it is changing the bias of skills. It is not guaranteeing a specific delivered skill. All right. So a specific, a singular delivered skill is very, very different. All right. And that's really the distinction that we want to make here, is that tonight what we're talking about is how can you make the golf ball do something different on this next swing versus when you're maybe doing swing stuff, what are you maybe, and I say maybe, because it's not an exact science. All right. It's a hypothesis. We're always working with incomplete information, right? But when you change swing, you are maybe biasing the skills in the desired way, more over like a longer term period of time. Right. So backing up into the definitions of like what are the skills, and we say there are 3 skills. The first is arc location, the second is face to path, and the third is club head speed. Right. So we used to say impact spot, I think. Like TGI 1.0, I think we said impact spot was the first skill. And we had a discussion on this, and we actually landed on arc location because there's a lot of different ways that you can create the same impact spot on the face. Right? The bottom of the swing could be in totally different places and create the same impact spot. Right? So we decided to kind of cut through the middleman, if you will, and just go straight to arc location as a skill. Right? Arc location is, as it says, if you think about the entire swing and the shape of it, there's actually been some really cool research by Dr. Young-Hoo Kwan that shows the bottom of the swing arc is darn near planar. Like, so the club head trajectory itself at the bottom of the swing is really close to being on a plane, quote unquote, if you will, right? And that plane occurs on an arc, right? On a tilted angle. And where the bottom of that swing arc, right, when it's kind of, we'll say like from about like waist high downswing to waist high follow through, right? You can just kind of picture the bottom half of your swing circle, right? Where is that swing circle located in space? From a height perspective, as well as a proximity from you perspective. Further away from you, closer to you, right? Those are the big ones. Now, there is also the proximity from the target. We say like behind the ball or ahead of the golf ball, like closer to the target stuff. And that's included in the skill. I go back and forth when I'm working with golfers on whether we need to spend a ton of time on that, because a lot of time that is more of a swing intervention, like to change where the bottom of the arc is from a behind the ball, ahead of the ball perspective. That is a little bit more invasive. It tends to create a little bit more swing changes, if you will. But I still categorize it under skill. I want them to think of it still as a skill. We still train that in many of the same ways that we're going to talk about tonight, kind of using the variable and differential training. So think of it like up, down, closer to you, further from you, closer to the target, further from the target. Where is the bottom of the arc in space? That is going to have the most influence on the impact spot on the face, where the ball is touching the club, right? Again, I go back and forth on the toward and away from the target element, because then you're talking about changes in loft at impact, potentially a little bit attack angle at impact, like some of that stuff. But pretty much when you change the height and when you change the proximity of it relative to you, closer and further from you, you're really just influencing the strike location on the face is really what you're doing with that arc location. So that's the skill 1. We call that skill 1 for a reason. We're going to get maybe into that. Skill 2 is going to be face to path. So just picturing the shaft of the club itself and just spinning the shaft about itself. Not changing where the club head is in space, not changing the angle of the shaft, so to speak. It's just spinning and rotating the shaft about itself to change the face orientation relative to the shaft. So we say closed face to path, open face to path. A lot of times I'm getting away from saying open and close. I'm just saying, hey, face left, face right, relative to the shaft, right? Because it's a little bit more actionable. It's a little bit more meaningful relative to what the golfer's experiencing. And then finally, club head speed. Not handle speed, not shaft speed, club head speed at impact, which is a whole rabbit hole that's, if there were a skill, in my opinion, if we're talking about these, we said that the arc location kind of ahead of the ball, behind the ball, has quite a few swing implications. But if there were ever a skill that was mostly tied to the swing itself, it would be club head speed. Club head speed and swing are very, very much interconnected. They're linked. And so more often than not, when you're looking at training club head speed, you're going to visually see differences in the size of the swing, right? And whereas with the others, you're probably not. You're hopefully, if you're doing this well, if you're doing skill training well, you're not seeing a huge or really any perceptible difference in the swing when you're working through this. Whereas in club head speed, you're going to see a big difference in the size of the swing as you're kind of going through it. So those are the three skills. And again, like, we're going to get a lot more into it, but I'll let you kind of take it from here, Eric. That's kind of the main points of emphasis tonight.
Yeah, and I think trying to reiterate to the golfer is that your swing is not what really controls the ball, right? It's your ability to produce a skill through the lens. I always say skill is produced through the lens of your swing, right? And this is why Jon Rahm's swing can look very different than Rory McIlroy's swing, and they can produce the same skills.
Yeah.
And so their ability to control the ball, the ability to hit the ball further, the ability to curve it right to left to right, high to low, the ability to make good contact, right, repeatedly, with swings that look very different.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm someone that has a swing that is idiosyncratic, I may be able to produce the skills I need. I may not be able to produce the skills I need. So for instance, today when I had a swing lesson, I said, he was, I don't want to say on the verge of quitting golf, but kind of. Not someone I regularly work with, but just like wasn't hitting it very well or very far. It was like, I've lost a lot of speed. I've lost a lot of distance. I don't know what's going on. And so his swing had, it had stuff that was going on. It was very inefficient in the way that he was moving and swinging the club. And so we worked on the swing. And actually, I said, don't worry about the skills right now. I said, don't worry about where the ball goes, because we are not focused on where the ball goes.
Yep.
I'm going to look at TrackMan, and we're going to try to make the club head go faster, period. We're not trying to hit it well. We're not trying to locate the arc. I would just say we're not trying to hit it good. You know, this is like coach speak, right? We're not trying to locate the arc. We're not trying to really control the face path relationship. We're not trying to hit a beautiful shot. We're trying to make the club head go faster when it hits the ball. Okay? Then, if we can do that in a way that we think works for you, it feels right, it feels comfortable, and we can build from there, then we'll learn how to build skill.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like down for it, right? And so that's what we worked on. Some days people come in and their swing is, they can't control the ball. It has nothing to do with their swing. We just need a little skill training, right? We need to control the face a little differently, or the arc location isn't quite right, or that's usually that. It's usually not speed, I would say. Okay. So that communication to yourself or with your coach is huge, because here's the story. Golfers blame shots on swings. But here's the problem with that. I can make what feels like the output from my body through the club to the ball, what feels exactly the same to me, and produce two different shots. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's skill, right? And this is something that really, 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 really smart teachers have been on for a long time.
Yeah, it's nothing new for sure.
It's nothing new, and but it's like, it's TrackMan newish in a way. I remember somebody that would harp on this video. I can't remember, it was Jordan Spieth or something. They kept showing this slow motion video of Jordan hitting it off the heel of his club. And it was just like, why did he do that? Why did he do that? Like, it was He was just baiting people into having this conversation like, oh, it was all this stuff. No, because he missed, right? It wasn't his swing broke down. This is what, like, you watch golf on TV. What happened there, Johnny? Well, he shut down the lower body and flipped it like, it's all this crazy swing commentary that's just like, oh my gosh, it's nauseating. So the point is, even the greatest golfers in the world don't produce the skills every single time because golf is hard, okay? It's okay to say that. But if you can take what Robbie was saying, you can go back and listen to it again, is we can sort out how we control the club and its interaction with the ball through how we move, which is swing, right? And then we're trying to correlate those together in a way.
Yep.
And that produces our golf shots. And so this is not every swing works and you can build the skills you want. Absolutely not. Because some swings cannot produce the skills, right? Like that guy I had today. It wasn't going to happen. Wasn't happening. He needed to change things and he knew it, right? So that's why he was there on the verge of like, quote unquote, giving it up. So I think that sorting those out in our mind as golfers, for me as a coach or teacher, for me as a player, for you as a player, for everyone listening as a player, you have to remember that sometimes our swing is okay and we just need to work on the skill. And sometimes our swing isn't okay and we need to work on our swing, right? It just is what it is. So today we're going to talk about skill. Next time we're going to talk about swing. See how fun this is?
Yep.
Golf improvement theory. Strategy to skill to swing. And we said on the last episode, it's probably for most people the order of least invasive and most productive.
Correct. Yep. 100%. So before we really get into levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, there are a few more things that we need to kind of iron out when it comes to skill. The big key here in what to really understand is that these skills are always predictions. All right. So there's what we call about like a very conscious prediction that you're making, which is the strategy stuff. Like, hey, where am I going to aim this shot? How far am I going to try to get this thing to go? What club am I going to pick? That kind of stuff. But there's also very much the subconscious prediction element of it, right? Whether we're aware of it or not, our brain is making a prediction that says, if I swing the golf club with the bottom of it in this location in space, things ought to work out okay for me. I don't care who you are and what level of golfer you are, there's always going to be a little bit of a separation between where you perceive or where you predict the bottom of the swing is going to be in space versus where it actually ends up being. And so skill and skill training is really the answer to, over a long period of time, how can we train in a way that closes the gap, closes that perception gap between where you believe the bottom of the swing is in space or is likely to be in space versus where it actually ends up being, right? And this goes for, like I just said, arc location. This goes with face to path, right? The opening and closing the face. It's going to change the start direction and the curve of the shot, as well as club head speed. All three of these skills are always predictions that, again, I don't care who you are, they can always be trained independently of swing, and you can always improve at them, right? So it is the dominant, immediate feedback that our golfers experience when they're training, when they're on the range, when they're playing golf. The overwhelming, again, dominant, immediate feedback that every golfer receives at impact, or as soon as they see the golf ball fly, is skill. And a lot of the training that we're going to maybe clue you in on is, was that truly a skill error, or was the general swing too different on that particular shot to allow you to be skillful, right? And I think understanding that is like, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever the error is, it was a skill error at the end of it. It's always going to be attributed to skill. Now, did you make the swing you wanted to make? And it just, again, the prediction was just off. Again, this is more stuff we're going to talk about. All right. So before we get much more into the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 discussions, there's just a couple key pieces that we need to hash out when it comes to skill. Because again, this is stuff that being on the lesson tee every single day and working through this, I see a lot of pitfalls with this. So understand, again, swing versus skill, and they are different. They are different. The overwhelming, dominant, immediate feedback that golfers experience at impact and when they watch the golf ball fly, when they practice and play, is skill. And through swing training, you can get better at saying, hey, was that swing in the ballpark and like the skill was just off? Or was that swing just not in the ballpark? Like that's what we're going to get into in our next episode. And that's what we aspire to get to, is to be able to improve the quality of that feedback. But at the end of the day, if the ball doesn't do what you want it to do, it was a skill issue. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All of these skills. So when we talk about arc location, which changes where the ball's being struck on the face to path, right? The opening and closing of the face relative to the shaft, which is going to change the start direction and the curve, as well as the club head speed. All of these skills in every shot, all three of them, are going to occur on a bell curve. All right. So for the golfer, and we're going to get into level 1, 2, 3, 4 golfer here in a second, but every skill outcome, all three of them on every shot, is occurring on a bell curve. And if you're familiar with this, you're going to have the very, very bottom 16% of shots are going to be big misses. So no matter who you are as a golfer relative to your skill level, 16% of all three of those skills over the course of a round of golf is going to be, again, outside of your dispersion. All right. Well below what your expectation or your hope was for that shot. 68% is going to be pretty average, like just a little bit of a miss when it comes to each of those three skills. All right, you get your bottom 34, then your top 34% of the middle kind of distribution. And then you get your top 16%, right, which is the best of the best, right? Dead in the middle of the face to path, matched up exactly what you wanted for the shot you were hitting. The club head speed, exactly what you wanted for that shot. Only 16% of the time is it going to be exactly what you want. So those are the two key things that I try to get across to golfers, is that they're predictions. You don't exactly know where the bottom of the golf swing is going to be in space. Every golfer, regardless of who you are, there's a separation between where you predict the bottom of the swing is going to be in space and where the bottom of the swing actually ends up being. Where you predict the club face to path is going to be when at impact versus what the actual face to path is at impact. What you predict the club head speed is going to be at impact versus what the club head speed actually ends up being at impact. And skill training, what we're going to talk about today, is answering the question of how do we close that perception gap? How do we get you a better predictor of the things that are very, very subconscious predictions? They're feel predictions. They're not conscious. They're not things that you can say in words in terms of how you're doing it, which is the frustrating part of it. But those are really kind of the key points. Like, skill is what the club and the ball are doing at impact. And the variances between functional and dysfunctional, and we're going to talk through level 1, 2, 3, 4, are a lot smaller than you think. Because the margins of error are so tiny, you can't possibly attribute accurately, typically, that one particular error to a swing thing.
No, because it's the time interval is so small.
Yes.
In which that's happening, right? And so a lot of what we talk about with skill is things that's happening. How do you say it? It's like not consciously controlled in a lot of ways, right? No matter what Johnny Miller said about catching the ball on the face and turning it down. When the ball's on the face, I just turned it down a little bit to draw, And so, yes, your swing stuff is giving you this vein of access, basically. And then so much depends on things like your routine and stand at the right distance from, or some distance that's controllable from the ball, or making adjustments on the environment, with slope and lie and all these things. And like, there's no question, the better you get at golf, the better you have to be at that prediction.
Yes.
Right? That's what we're going to talk about. So I think that you were saying a little bit ago about sometimes you can make a swing and you go, oh, well, it was a skill thing because it didn't go right or whatever. When I was working on swing with a young lady today who could not hit a driver, actually a pretty good player, but just could never hit driver.
Yeah.
And so we had to work on swing. There was a big swing stuff going on there but anyway, the bottom of her arc on her driver changed by 14 and a half inches.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It went from hitting the ground at the low point 11 inches after to 3.5 inches before impact. You are not going to hit a good shot doing that on the first swing. You have changed it so dramatically, your arc location dramatically, that the skill is not going to be produced on the first swing. This is why it's hard to get good at golf, because I can stand there in the lesson and go,
great job.
Awesome. And if they understand, which they do because I tell them this, what we're after and what our parameters are, like the other guy was speed. For her, it was working on, I was working on a lot of stuff. But we were looking at the path, we were looking at the low point, we were looking at the face angle. Like there was a lot of swing stuff going on we're putting together. But I said, look, you can't change it by a foot, which is outrageously awesome. And I hit a good shot on the first swing. She's like, yeah, cool. Let's do it again. Because the context is understood, the learning context. So coaches have to explain well. Students have to understand. And then that's how you train. So if that person's on their range and they're trying to do this themselves with no technology, no understanding, and they completely whiff, they're going to go, well, that was a bad swing. You see our point, listener? Yeah. This is why this episode matters, right?
Yes.
That right there is the description why this episode matters. Then a few swings later, she's trying to do the same stuff and crushes one right off the middle of the face. What'd you do different? Nothing. Well, then why was it better? Because you just got used to it. The skill happened subconsciously.
Her brain got feedback.
Correct. And it improved itself, right? So this is what we're saying. That is what skill and swing is all about in the learning context.
100%.
Okay.
All right.
So now, this is where it's going to get interesting. I'm actually really interested to hear what you say here because I don't know what you're going to say, Rob.
We haven't talked about this.
We haven't talked about it. We're just like, let's record. Let's go, baby. So let's go. Let's go skill level 1, 2, 3, 4, which hopefully you all know what that means as a listener. But basically, we're grouping golfers based on their scoring ability and making some assumptions based on real life statistics about how they play golf. And now we're going to discuss their skills, apparently.
Yeah. So for level 1 golfers, for entry level 1 golfers, oftentimes it's a swing-centered first lesson in a way. So if you think about like of those 3 skills, I'm of the belief that there are some correlations to skill when we come to like the general freedom and the rhythm that the club is swinging with. So oftentimes with entry level 1 golfers, I put a priority on swinging the club freely, getting them to understand how the club rotates and has momentum into the golf ball. It's not their job to hit the ball, to muscle the club to the ball. It's their job to swing the club freely somewhere in space, right? So oftentimes we do this even without a golf ball. It's like, hey, can you, and I'll be cueing them in a bunch of different ways, and then we'll settle on kind of what works well for them. But can you get to a point to where the club is rotating and swinging freely around you in a way that's fairly consistent, that you feel like you could do it efficiently, right? Create enough club head speed to be able to play without hurting your body and without it changing much from shot to shot, right? So you can say really enough club head speed to get going is where we start with just some very general swing stuff. Nothing really like too complicated, but really once you get to the end of level 1, when you're starting to almost kind of have a swing, even though the rhythm many times still leaves a lot to be desired, it's the arc location with these level 1 golfers that we're going to highlight the most, in many cases exclusively, like not even go into face to path or club head speed, depending on the individual we have in front of us. Now, not all level 1 golfers are created equal, right? So Eric, I think maybe in our last episode, you were referencing some like pretty athletic, like fast entry level 1 golfers that actually do make impact, but the face is wildly out of their dispersion. So in those golfers, obviously, we're taking a look at each golfer and looking at, hey, what skill is going to move the needle for them in the desired direction, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but for the purpose of the podcast, we've talked about big data. Really, it is arc location that gets you kind of through the entry into kind of like the mid level 1 phase of improvement, which is going from like complete beginner golfer all the way to shooting 88-ish on average. Right? Is that what you're seeing as well?
Agreed. I mean, I think face could be a thing. It is pretty general to say that some beginner golfers tend to have the face wide open.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's not functional.
Yeah. It's almost
So
I've seen it where it's so open that they literally can't hit the face. Like no amount of arc location training would get them to hit the face with it that wide. And I'm talking like crazy open at impact I've seen, like laying back, right? So there are those.
So that's sure. So I would say face and arc location, not necessarily some path related, like just generally being able to get the face in some functional and not even that predictable. It can be closed.
Oh, with face.
A good amount or open like a fair amount, but they still can make some decent contact if their arc is in the right place. Yeah. And then that gets them around, right? So like that's I would say that face has to be somewhat functional.
Yeah.
And somewhat predictable. But
it'd be cool to define that. Like what's the like plus or minus 6 degrees-ish, somewhere in there? I don't know.
It's hard to say because speed plays such a role. You know, the lady today she was pretty fast. Yeah. And so her face was so open, TrackMan wouldn't read it. So that usually it's about 13 face to path, somewhere around it. Have you ever noticed that? Somewhere in the low teens, TrackMan stops reading face. And it wasn't reading most of them.
Wow,
that's how open crazy. It was. But she's athletic, so she actually made it work pretty decently. Yeah. But we just down and in. But we started with face, right? So that was got to start there most of the time.
Yeah. Just in the ballpark, right?
Yep, in the ballpark.
For sure. And then so as you get to kind of entry level 2, and we actually covered a lot of the metrics that we're referencing here, like in our last episode when we talked about strategy and kind of what stats kind of drive your improvement based off the level you are. So if you haven't listened to that, go back to the prior episode. But really, once you get to the entry level 2, I would say like from entry level 2 all the way pretty much through level 2, it's going to be an equal dosage of arc location and face to path for the most part. That's kind of drive the ball striking improvement kind of where we need to be. With the caveat there being pretty much like once you get to the middle of level 2, like if we say level 2 again is like from 88 all the way down to 76, but like once you get to like in the 82-ish, 83 on average range, like that's where club head speed becomes more of a thing because we need to really start to drive our greens in regulation a bit more. So again, like level 2 is kind of where it's like all three. Like really, truly, like arc location on the beginning of level 2 is probably a bit more like heavily, important. Middle of level 2, right? Face to path. And then maybe once you get to the end of level 2 is kind of like face to path and club head speed, right? If you can kind of visualize the progression through there. Not saying arc location is any less important, right? Because I mean, how many end of level 2 golfers are just not quite aware enough to know like, wait a minute, you're hitting it just a little out the heel or a little out the toe on average. And I think that can definitely move the needle for them. But for level 2, again, from 88 all the way down to 76, it's going to be all three. Early biased a little bit more arc location, middle probably a little bit more face to path, and then towards the end a bit more club head speed. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, totally agree. Let me give you a for instance though.
Yeah.
If I am a decent athlete, multi-sport high school player who has lots of speed and has a swing that just is going to be what it is going into golf season.
Yep.
Like, hey, I'm slicing my driver.
Yep.
But also I need a new driver. Okay. let's fit you for a driver. And he has a regular flex, and he swings at 100. This is a true story, by the way. So this is kind of like
it was very
happened to me.
specific for it to be.
Yeah. So swings at 112 miles an hour, which is pretty fast, by the way. Strong kid, very strong, power lifter, and is not going to change his swing because he doesn't really ever work on it. So he just plays by feel, right? It just happened fun on his high school team. And so face to path numbers are, path is like 4 degrees across, nothing crazy, a little bit down on the driver.
Yeah.
But face is like 6 or 7 degrees open because the shaft's too weak and his, he just doesn't time it up very well. So all I did was put him in an X flex with an upright lie angle, and I put an adjustable weight in the draw position, and his face to path number went basically to pretty square.
Yeah.
And he went from not playable with the driver to delivering a face to path and a strike location that was pretty consistent and driving it straight. So what would you say was the improvement of the skill there?
It was a strategy of club choice.
Oh, come on.
You handed him a different club, sir. That is a strategy.
That is this is Robbie's
skill.
like,
you influence skill for sure
with equipment,
which is a strategy intervention. I can also influence skill with where I aim. I can also influence skill with my prediction process of where the ball is in space relative to the lie, that like the slope, like all that stuff. And all of this influences skill. Nothing doesn't influence skill. But it's like skill in of itself is a method of training that is isolating the motor pattern, the actual like input from your brain that is giving you that result, that outcome.
Yeah. So I thought that would be a good illustration of like, changing, something changed for him. It wasn't his swing. It wasn't even like some type of skill training. It wasn't. It was just a different club. Right.
It was not skill training. It was a strategy.
These are the things that can influence skill. Yeah. Right.
For sure.
And to your point, just aiming a little right or left sometimes really influences skill. People don't realize that. It can have a huge effect. Right. Yep. So these are some of the things that as we get into level 2 golfers really matter because I think as you move, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, the better you are at golf, the more you've paid attention to your equipment. Yeah. Right. No question about it. The more you've paid attention to start line strategy, the more you've paid attention to, working club face delivery stuff that allows you to move the ball different ways. And so as you're progressing through and trying to march down towards scratch golfer, these are the things that really start to play in.
For sure.
And so, I think it's just trying to understand all the things that can play into that. Yeah. Right. And if you have a club like that's too light or has the wrong loft or has the wrong lie angle or setting of the center of mass, loft, you literally may never produce the skill. Yeah. Like it might never happen or be a real struggle to happen. And so you just have to pay attention to these things over time. Even tee height. Tee height's a thing that matters. Like these are the things that all play into this, right? Yeah. So the better you get at golf, the more these little details matter.
For sure.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
And then finally we get into level 3. And pretty much once you get to level 3, you're not getting here if you aren't really darn proficient at arc location and face to path. They are still important to train. And what we're going to talk about is there is this many golfers, and you can't see it on the podcast, but on the video, 0.0 golfers who aren't training all 3. But it's like, what are we shining a spotlight on? What are we emphasizing the most as a proportion of all 3 and kind of the time allocation? For level 3 and level 4 golfers, it is disproportionately going to be speed. The speed predictability and the management of speed, especially with wedges, we talk about anywhere from, green side, predicting different lies and how this little 5-yard pitch might come out and how much clubhead speed I need based off of the lie the ball's sitting in, all the way to 130, 40 yards, playing around with different winds, like, hey, where's the slope here? Am I landing this on an upslope where the green's way down below me, or am I landing this thing on a downslope where the green's way above me? Like, all of this stuff plays into its speed. It's the management of clubhead speed, and it's the creation of clubhead speed, especially with driver, right? And then when we talk about when birdies become more thing, when we're trying to track how many birdie putts do you have inside of 20 feet and around a golf, you can't drive those at the rate that you need if you're not hitting the driver far enough. Just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to get the ball inside of 40-ish yards on par 5s and 2, basically. You need to have inside of 6-iron quite a bit on your par 3s and your par 4s. And that's driving the ball far. That's creating a lot of speed, and then also being able to predict and manage speed. Again, I see plenty of level 3 golfers on a day in and day out basis where we do touch on arc location, we do touch on face to path. But man, when we do skill training, it's got to be at least, 80% clubhead speed is what I typically see.
Yeah, and so the point of that speed isn't just about increasing speed, it's about controlling. So if I have to throttle back, especially in the short game, that's another speed or energy skill, right? Like, can I regulate that the right way?
For sure.
And yes, there's no question that the better you are at golf, the more you're working on those things. There's no question about it. Even just when you're hitting a 7-iron from the fairway and you want it to go X distance, I don't want it to go X plus 10, and I don't want it to go X minus 10.
Yep.
I want it to go roughly X, right? And hopefully hit it pin high, but I want it to go X. So I don't want one swing to be producing 85 clubhead speed on a 7-iron and the next one producing 81 if I'm trying to predict the same thing.
Right.
And so repeatability of rhythm, like it's where you said, like, I don't know how you phrased it. It was kind of funny. You said rhythm is kind of a mess still or something. You're talking about level one golfers.
Leaves much to be desired.
Oh, wait. Yeah, it was kind of like leaves much to be desired. It sounded like something out of Harry Potter or something. But yeah, but recreating rhythm so that you predict energy in the strike is like huge, right? Like I'm trying to hit it the same distance. And so if you've ever done a TrackMan combine, they can give you some insight because you're trying to replicate. They give you a yardage and you're trying to hit the yardage, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to hit it pin high. It's better to hit it pin high. And, the reports on those are pretty wild. It shows you the speed of every shot that you hit, club speed, ball speed, all the stuff you want to see.
Yeah.
And I often use that as a way to say, can I produce and reproduce and reproduce? Right. And sometimes we talk a lot about just producing one time, but I think producing over and over at times is really important because we're controlling that energy. Right.
Cool.
And that's a big deal for me and my good players that I work with them on, for sure.
Cool. I'll need to look more into that for sure. All right. So you ready to get into the training stuff?
Get into the training stuff.
All right. So for skill, there are 2 main ways you can train it that we're aware of. The first is going to be differential training, and then the second is going to be variable training. So differential training is going to be intentional errors, right? So again, you're creating intentional errors on both ends of the margin of error of the spectrum, right? So for this, typically you're going to start in the same place each time. So you're going to set up exactly how you would if you're hitting a stock shot on the golf course, right? But you're going to isolate a skill or an aspect of a skill, right? So if we talk about arc location, maybe we just do the arc height for a golfer, right? So starting from the same place, can you make a swing where the bottom of the swing arc is too high on the first one, right? Or higher than functional, right? Which, for level 1 golfers, they could even miss the ball. I don't really like just go right over top of it.
Yeah. So you try to blade it or top it.
Or exactly.
Like swing over
Swing right over top of it, right? On the very next shot, you're going to attempt to have the bottom of the swing too low, right? So if you're on mats, you're going to feel some thump. If you're on grass, you might get a chunk. And what I've had some golfers do is on that one, tee the ball up, right? Start with the club head at the height of the ball and then have the bottom of the swing go lower than the ball, right? So basically you're pretending that the ball's sitting way up above your feet or the ball's sitting up in high grass. You're just going to get the bottom of the swing lower than too low, right? And then on the third, and this is key, you're going to attempt to find somewhere between the two. Not perfect, not a good shot, not quote unquote correct, just somewhere between the two, all right? Because as we move forward with this, what we're going to do is we're going to shrink what we call the bandwidth, shrink the distance of the first two from center, right? So level 1 golfers, really, I don't shrink that bandwidth really hardly at all. I was like, hey, can the first one be just somewhere too high? Second one be somewhere too low. Third one somewhere between, right? And then you can also do this for the arc proximity relative to you. Can you get the first one too far away from you such that, hey, you could even miss the golf ball on the other side of it, right? To where the club head passes on the other side of the golf ball from where you're standing, right? If it hits the ball is going to hit the heel. On the second one, can you get the bottom of the swing too close to you such that it hits the toe if the club hits the ball? And then the third one, again, just like somewhere in between, right? For a level 2 golfer, right, if we start to get a little bit more in depth with this, I would want both of those shots to make impact with the surface area of the face, basically, right? So like, hey, I want the heel to still be on the face, but can be basically just inside heel. It could still be a shank, really. The second one, I want it to be on the mirror, if you can think about like the mirror of the toe, right? And then somewhere between those two, right? And then once you get to level 3, you're like, okay, well, the heel is going to still be a functional shot. The toe ball is still going to be a functional shot. And then the third, because now the bandwidth is so much shorter, just somewhere between the two is likely going to feel great right off the sweet spot. And I don't care if it's exactly on the sweet spot, but it needs to be imperceptible to them. Like when I ask, like, hey, like, was that sweet spot? Like, I want them to say, yeah, that felt great, right? So that's kind of like what that differential training is going to look like for arc. That's just specific to arc location. We do it for club face, we do it for club head speed, for levels 1, 2, 3, and then 4 golfers are going to be the same. I want it to feel pretty good, but on the toe, pretty good, but on the heel, and then that third between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then there's variable training as well, right? So variable training is, can you find the quote unquote in between, the one that you prefer, but changing the starting conditions, changing the setup, essentially, like changing where the ball is relative to where you're starting. And so you can think of variable training as essentially playing golf, because when you're on the golf course, you're trying to deliver the same skill. You're trying to deliver the ball in the center of the club face, but you're on a downslope. You're standing on an upslope, right? Ball's below your feet, ball's above your feet, ball's sitting up in the grass, ball's sitting down in the grass. So the starting conditions change, right? So there's variability. That's why we call it variable training. There's variability in the environment, but you're trying to create the same delivered skill. And this is where like you can throw people in all sorts of different lies and slopes. And on a mat, like during the winter especially, I teach off of a mat. I'll just have them set up, and then I'll grab the ball and I'll just move it a little bit. I'll move it closer to the target, further from the target, closer to where I'm standing, closer to them. Put the ball up on a tee, and then like again, you can do the same variable training for a club face. Like you would grip it a little bit too open and try to deliver it square. Grip it a little too close, try to deliver it square, right? So again, you're trying to create the desired shot just in all sorts of different starting places. And then to change the challenge point, what you're doing there is you're changing the size of the dispersion. So it's like for level 1 golfers, they have like a 10-finger dispersion. Like, hey, how many of these shots can you get inside a 10, it's like 5 fingers on either side of the target, but I'm going to change the starting position every single time on you, right? Whereas level 2 golfers, now you have a tighter window to get it into, maybe 3-4 fingers on either side. And then for level 3 golfers, you only get 3 fingers on either side of the target to be able to get the ball into. But again, you're changing something in terms of how they're having to do it each time, which some golfers much prefer that to the differential training because they like to have the feeling of the good shots.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, however, I actually prefer the differential training more often than not because an added benefit of the differential training is that you get to experience how they're different, how the toe feels different than the heel, how it sounds different from the heel. The differential training gives you the awareness when you're playing golf. So like, hey, you're on the golf course and you're playing and you mess up on one of the skills. If you've done differential training, you are way more likely to know actually what happened there. Whereas like, if you aren't doing differential training, if you're not giving yourself those intentional errors in practice on purpose, then there are going to be some percentage of shots on the golf course where a skill is outside of your dispersion and you don't know why. And that's, as a coach, that's really what we're trying to get to, is we got to get you to know without a shadow of a doubt which skill was it that was out of place on that shot, right? And that's a huge benefit of differential training. The variable it transfers nicely to the golf course, potentially, maybe a little bit. But for long-term learning, I almost prefer the differential because it does give you that error feedback that allows you to detect a pattern when it arises on a golf course.
Yeah, I think I told this story on here before, but a couple years ago, I remember playing in a pro-am at the country club. I don't remember the context of it, but the rough was just outrageous on the James River. I can't remember if we kind of came out of a rainy period or if we were might have been leading up to the Dominion tournament. I don't remember, but the rough was crazy. So the whole front nine, the club face for me was closed on my driver, and I'm hitting it in the left rough all day, and it was like this crazy, healthy, thick, deep Bermuda, and I was just not getting it on the greens. And I think I shot 40 on the front, and I was like, not in a good, I was a little bit upset. But I get to the 10th tee, and I'm like, okay, I've hit it in the left rough like 6 times today. Like, what is going on? You just kind of think about it, like the irons are good, the driver's not quite good. So I'm just going, okay, what do you do to change the club face, Eric? Like, think about this for a second, right?
Yep.
And so I saw enough of a pattern. I was aware enough in my practice where I work on things like hitting the ball more left or hitting the ball more right, because I'm training the club face, right? And so I weakened my left-hand grip, which felt terrible, and then I rip it right off the 10th tee straight down the middle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it, right? And I shot, I think, 1 or 2 under on the back nine because it hit in the fairway, right? And so ended up salvaging the round. But the point is, I was hitting it, 20 yards more left than I ever do on the whole front, basically on the whole front nine with driver. And so I had to come up with a way to adjust it on the fly. And to your point, if you never train that, how are you going to have access to it? All you're thinking is, especially if you don't understand skill, because then you're going to think your swing is broken. Right? I didn't change my swing, right? I gripped it differently in my left hand and then was able to, put the ball in the fairway. So point being, this type of training is important, and no one does this. Like, very few people do this, right? Not enough people do this, right? Not enough people do this.
And to just comment on that right there. So the key being is that you intentionally have trained getting the golf ball to do different stuff, right? It wasn't like you were just grasping at straws and saying, oh, I bet my grip is wrong, so let me just look at Instagram and try to find this new grip that is going to solve all my ailments. No, you have worked on this before, and you called upon a tool in your toolbox to be able to change that one particular skill that was a little bit off. I would tend to think that a grip would be more of a swing intervention technically. So you wouldn't have to, in terms of what we're talking about tonight, that would be a way you could do it. It wouldn't be purely a skill thing because you're not keeping everything else. You're not keeping the swing stuff, quote unquote, the same. You are changing grip, which would be more technically like a swing thing. But the beauty of that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't, right? you've worked on changing the face, so you were able
Yeah.
to change the face. Like,
To me, that's not
yeah.
it. To me, in my feels, there's no input on the swing that's any different.
Yeah.
Like all I
Yeah.
did was hold it differently, which opens the face
Yeah.
to me. If I'm hitting a driver, my path is generally in to out 2 degrees
Yes.
with a face just slightly closed, with nothing changed to the path and nothing, just being able to deliver the face. It was probably coming in 4 degrees closed, and then all of a sudden it was 1 or 2 degrees closed again. Right. So no input from me. It was not me searching in my swing to change anything. It was just like, Eric, how do you deliver the face differently? Right. And to your point, it was a little more input conscious, whatever.
Yeah.
But it still changed it.
Yes,
It changed the face
correct.
to path,
Yep.
right? In a way that when I practice face to path stuff, I change my grip. If I'm going to hit a draw, I strengthen my grip.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to hit a fade, I weaken my grip. That is how I manipulate.
Yes.
And then I aim to
Yeah.
get the path differently. Like that's just how I do it. So
That's cool.
that's part of how I, see it and work through it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what you also did was you didn't just do it after one skill error.
No.
You did it after like 3 or 4, and it was outside your dispersion. It wasn't like, if the ball's inside your dispersion, typically what we say is just like, throw yourself a party.
Right.
Like,
It's not a big deal.
it's not a big deal. You could hit every shot within your dispersion a little bit left, and guess what? I don't want you to change a thing.
There's no fixing.
There is no fixing.
100%
It is
agree.
in
Yep.
your dispersion. You
Mhm.
accept it, you find it, and you let it go. It's only if it's outside your dispersion and there's a pattern. And so, again, how do you know what your dispersion is? We have this video on our Substack, so feel free to go check that out. But if you see me or if you see Eric, we can clue you in on what your dispersion could likely be. But the point is, again, another way of saying that is like, hey, within that bell curve, it needs to be like your bottom 16% of shots. 3 or 4-ish in a row, pretty close together before you're making an intentional error. And with a lot of the skill training stuff, what we tell people is just do it. It's literally like working out. Hey, just do it and then forget about it. Like, you don't need to go thinking about how you're doing it. As soon as, when you're doing the skill training, as soon as you start coming up with, oh, my left elbow is doing this differently and my right hip is doing this differently, so that means that I need to always be doing this with my elbow. Stop. We are not looking for a swing fix with this. We're not looking for a new swing thought. This is literally just perception. It's just feel. It's a very, very slight feel tweak. What I can tell you is that for impact location in particular, when we talk about the arc height, you have about a 1/2 inch on either side of the sweet spot to work with to be functional. 1/2 inch.
It's not much.
All right. With face to path, okay, you have about, I'd say, 6 degrees to keep it on the golf course, to keep it in play, right? So as soon as you're 6 degrees off, pretty much with most all full swings, the ball's out of play. Well, how much is 6 degrees? It's 1 second on the clock, right? On a clock face, it's 6 degrees is 1 second. So there is no swing thought guarantee. There is no, when you're doing this, like, oh, if I just do this, then like I will always deliver this skill, or I will never experience this other skill that I've experienced. Like, no, it's just something like, it's like brushing your teeth. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, and you forget about it. And in my opinion, every training session needs to have some of that brushing your teeth element to it. Like, I'm just going to spend 10 minutes with my brain learning where this golf club is, and then I'm going to forget about it, right? And I promise you, if you stick with it, it will pay massive, 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 massive dividends.
Mr. Fails, we're an hour and 10. We're an hour and 10 in. We did receive some questions, which we're not going to do tonight. We will answer these questions. So if you have questions for us, like I said on the last show, you can ask on the Substack if you follow us there, or you can email us at thegolfintervention@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Insta if you like to do that. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. Questions are great. That's why we have the show. To answer questions you don't know you need, that's why it's called intervention. That's why we started with that. With that name, so That was fun, Rob. Hopefully people gained a great understanding. Swing and skill they're not inseparable, but if you understand the differences, you can, I think, really train and understand and keep yourself on a good track. I feel like so many people, quote unquote, monkey around with their swing that they just never give themselves time to develop skill. And if you stay the course, you try to work on skill with a swing that you feel like is functional or works well, or that somebody has blessed, like, Eric told me my swing's pretty good. Why can't I hit the ball straight? Well, it's got to practice some skill stuff, right? And you'll get the skill right, and then you'll learn to produce those shots. So I think that has helped me over the years really tremendously. And again, TrackMan has really, really helped. Really, really helped. So that is our episode for today. If you want to support the show, you can check us out on Substack. I'll put the link in the show notes. We're so glad that you tune in with us. Hopefully everybody likes this episode. And we'll catch you next time with a discussion of swing. We'll actually go into some swing stuff next time, which will be super fun. All right, everybody, have a great week of golf, and we will catch you next time on the Golf Intervention Podcast.